Alright, so we're going to take a look at the value packet here. I'm going to talk about how to do some of this stuff because I think some of it's like a little bit tricky. And I want to make sure you get it all. So, here we go. There's a couple of things that are covered here. Value is how light or dark a given area is on a grayscale. So I want you to think about, you're looking at a black and white drawing, you're looking at a black and white photograph. How dark or light a given area is its value. All right. So under here we have what's called a value scale. The darker values are called low values. The grays are called middle values. And the white areas are called high value. So here's an example of different value scales shaded in different ways. Alright, so another concept we cover is that colors have a value too. This is kind of a general guideline for the value of a color. You might have a blue, for instance, that's darker than a purple sometimes. It just kind of depends on the shade, etc. But as a general guideline, this is going to be the way the value scale works. You'll start with black. You'll go purple, blue, red, green, orange, yellow, white. You need to color in this value scale. Don't sleep on that. So don't miss that part. You can use either markers or colored pencils. Next, you're going to do a bunch of value scales. They're going to have 5 values each. So you're going to start with light and work your way to dark. I actually recommend you do it backwards. So you start with the dark. Get it as dark as you can by kind of Hercules pressing down on the pencil, making that area as dark as possible, and slowly easing off as you go to the left. So you're going to start with smooth shading. I don't want to see any drawing strokes here. Try to make it as smooth and even as possible. Then you'll do hatching, which is those parallel lines. Then you'll do cross hatching, which is the parallel lines and the perpendicular lines. Stippling, which is the dots. Squiggly lines and scribbly lines. Squiggly lines and scribbly lines don't really have an official sort of definition as far as I'm concerned. So you can kind of do whatever the word invokes in you. For my squiggly lines, I do kind of more of a curly Q, and my scribbly lines are more of a ziggy-zaggy, okay? But you can do that however you feel inclined to do it. I'm not going to be a stickler or punish you on it. Does somebody have music playing while I'm doing this? Because this would be a case where that's a phone crime and your phone should go to phone jail. I hope nobody's committing a phone crime. I know you're new to the rules, so I'm going to try to warn everybody in this way that anybody who's paying attention could pick up on. All right, so hopefully it won't be an issue. Next, you're going to shade each of these forms using a different shading technique. So, for example, I used like hatching here and over here. I used cross hatching here. I tried to use smooth shading here and squiggly lines over here. Okay? So when you're doing this, think about the practice we've done in our sketchbooks with shading geometric forms. The light's over here, so you're probably going to have light areas on this side and dark areas on this side. Remember, when you have a curve, you want to have a gradation or a gradual transition from light to dark, dark to light. When you have a flat area, you want solid shading. So next thing is a little bit tricky. You're going to take your time on these 3 because they're a little bit difficult. So I'm going to show you a couple of ways to do this. So you're supposed to use a grid to copy the values in the photo. So the idea with using a grid is that you can break your image up into smaller sections. So here we're just going to do 1-inch squares. And we're going to try to use that grid to break up the drawing and make it so we're dealing with smaller spaces. So I use a ruler. I mark every inch. I want to mark on the bottom and the top. I want to make sure that I line up my 0 with the edge of the drawing so that everything lines up and I have straight lines. If I mark the top and the bottom when I'm making a grid and then place my ruler so it's touching both marks, I should get a nice straight line. That's why it's important to mark both of them. Okay, so when I'm making my horizontals, I can actually just go all the way through. I should measure that first, but I actually have lines where I erased earlier. But if I was doing this properly, I'd measure here, I'd mark every inch, I'd measure here, I'd mark every inch, and then I'd draw lines going straight through. And then same thing over here, measure. I'm not because I'm going fast for you, but you would measure and mark those lines in. So now you have a grid, and you can look at the picture square by square, and it should make it easier to copy. So for instance, I might start in the upper left corner, okay? This image is also posterized, meaning it's broken into solid shades, okay? So it's got like a dark area, a medium dark area, a medium area, a medium light area, and then some highlights in the eyes. So those are broken apart to make it easier to draw for you. So to transfer this, I'd look over to this upper left-hand square, and I'd kind of look at that black area, and I'd try to figure out, what does that look like? Where does this black area intersect this line? It looks like it's a little more than halfway over, so maybe I mark that point. I see, where does it cross this line here? It looks like it's near the top here, so it's about here, and then the curve kind of happens like this. So that's that dark area, and then maybe I shade that dark area in. Again, this is black, right? This is pretty black. That's as black as the printer gets. I'm not going to be able to get that black probably with my pencil, but I can get close. So I want to get as dark as possible for that area. That's my darkest area. All right. If you want to get darker than you're getting with your number 2 pencil, you can borrow a graphite kit and use one of the drawing pencils in there. And I'm going to look at my medium dark area. So that kind of comes down like this, and then it curves in right here, kind of like this. And then I'll shade that medium dark. So not as dark as my black area, but I want it nice and dark still. So some pressure, but not a lot. And then I'll look at my medium area, and that kind of covers everything except just this tiny bit right here. And I'll go like this and go a little lighter. And I might go too dark. If I go too dark, I can kind of blend some of it together a little bit. I can come in and erase it gently. I can maybe erase gently and then blend. But I try to adjust it until I get to like a medium tone. All right, by proceeding through square by square, I should end up with something that looks kind of like this. All right? So it takes a while. So I'm not going to do the whole thing for you. I'm not going to show you all of it because it would be kind of a waste of your time, as long as you get the idea. All right, I'm going to show you another method for doing this same sort of thing that doesn't use a grid. This is a good method for you to use if you don't have like a ruler. So if I just had any kind of straight edge, maybe I should fold a piece of paper in half, I can use this method. What I do for it is I connect the corners with a diagonal like that. I connect the other corners with the diagonal like that, like this. And then I want to draw a horizontal line through the center here, and then a vertical line through the center. What this does is it divides my image up into smaller triangles. Same sort of idea, that working with the smaller triangles one at a time, looking at where the different value areas intersect them, is a way to make my drawing simpler and easier to do. So instead of doing one complicated drawing, I'm doing 8 smaller, simple drawings that fit together, hopefully. And then same sort of idea here. We want to start with the diagonals. It's important to start with the diagonals because that will show us where our vertical and our horizontal need to go. So there's our diagonals. And I want to do a vertical right through the center. I want to make sure this is parallel to the edges of my box or my paper. And do another one right through here. Okay? As long as the picture and my surface I'm drawing on are proportional, this should work just fine. Okay? Same sort of idea here. This one's a little trickier because it's not posterized. I didn't break up the tone. So you've got a lot of subtle gradations. You've got transitions where it goes from like a medium dark to a medium here, and it does it kind of evenly and smoothly. So that makes it a little more challenging, but you should be able to do it. Here's kind of my half-completed version. All right? Same idea with this one. You can use either the grid or the triangles. I don't care. This one's going to be upside down. The idea behind doing it upside down is sometimes it's easier to draw abstract shapes than it is to draw things we recognize, such as faces. And if you turn something upside down, it makes it a little harder to recognize. You get a little less interference from your brain telling you what things should look like. And the parts of your brain that are better able to see what things do look like are a little more active. So this is a method that a lot of portrait painters will use when they're working from a photo, to turn the photo upside down for the drawing, or to turn them upside down and check the drawing that way. It's a really useful technique. So practice that one as well. You can either do the grid or the triangles. So these should take you a fair amount of time. This shouldn't be super fast. All right, so that's sort of the idea with your value packet there. Stop the video and I'll talk about your project after